Hello and welcome back to my GTNH playthrough. It is February 24th and I am over here by my Nanoforge. Probably going to try to speed this video a little faster. I got a lot to go over, but I actually recorded this once and my audio didn't capture for some reason. So I'm going to try to do it a little faster this time because it was a longer video last time. But guess real quickly to recap where I left off on Sunday, I had set up the Kevlar line, which is moving along kind of jammed up, I assume, because I've been at 2,500 plates for a few hours now. The B, however, is working over hard. 79,000 nuggets should be roughly, what would be, a little over 5,000 ingots divided by 9. It'll be not quite, it's very rough math. Anyways, I don't know how much of that I need. And also, I was planning on, part of the reason I did the whole line was because to boost up the PCB production, but the next step that's required to progress anyways also does that, but better. So that whole Kevlar thing might have just been a big old waste, but that's fine. It was fun to do. It was definitely, I found it funner than what I got done today and yesterday. With the exception of this thing was kind of fun to upgrade. So the main concern to get this to upgrade to tier 2 is build this structure. Nothing really of note here. It's literally got only this casing and the assembly box or assembly line casing block. So like that's it. You just build this and make sure it's in the exact spot that this guy needs to see it at. Simple as that. Now the little more tricky part is this neutronium nanite. To make this guy, and I exited out of Minecraft, so I had all this stuff pulled up, but it's gone. Oh man, neutronium nanite. To make this guy, we need UMV power, which is why, if you're perceptive, you'll see this Nequata reactor chilling back here. I did decide to just throw this down here so that if I do need to mass produce nanites for some reason, I'm not running into a power issue. Otherwise, this should stay pretty much dormant. This will only fire off if specifically this guy is low on power. Obviously, it feeds power into this transformer through a laser hatch up into this guy. And then over here, I decided to, instead of powering this with a laser hatch, because you can technically run UMV with a 256 UV laser hatch, I opted for this route. That way, it's now literally running on the absolute maximum of what can be provided at the moment through a UV energy hatch. Instead, we got for 164 amp energy hatch, essentially 80 amps available to it and a little bit of a buffer, as well as what's providing these power down here is 2 separate 64 amp output. So this is getting something like 400, I believe it's the calculation, 400,000 400 million EU per tick. Sorry, was had to think about that. And at most, it's going to be taking this guy right here at 134. So this should never really be a problem unless I run out of NAC 3 fuel, which for some reason this has creeped down a little. Not really sure why, but yeah. So we're all good over here. That was this part. The other part, though, to be able to progress on to the mothership, if we look at I will note you need this lens to make nanite, and to do this is pretty straightforward. You just make it the same way as the other lenses, but every step of it, besides funnily enough it running through just a regular smelter, so 0 power, every other step is UHV. So I did have to upgrade a bunch of energy hatches, but otherwise there wasn't really much a note for that. So the next thing to get to the mothership, though, so once we have the nanites and we essentially did that to unlock this quest, if we go into the space race, that was blocking this, because if we look at the mothership, we need the nanite control module, which is made with nanite clusters, which are made with this neutronium nanite, which in itself, like I said, UMP. So I don't know why I needed a tier 2 Nanoforge to unlock, because as far as I can tell, there's something else in here I'm missing in this recipe that requires the tier 2 forge over there, but wherever it is, we're good and set for it. But the other part that's needed for all this is if we go over to the shuttle legs, we need these lightweight plates, which by default are not too big of a deal. They're just UEV power, which we already had to do to make the tier 8 plates. However, we need molten redox, which I will get to in a minute because I forgot to show off. Not too big of a deal. The other thing I upgraded was the density squared to finally have an electric implosion compressor. I mainly did this because this guy was out of ITNT, and I was out of ITNT because of my infinity passive production. It actually was running so well that the density squared or implosion compressors that was over here completely ran through 500,000 ITNT. So this whole line is shut down. Plus I couldn't auto craft any of my compress plates because the bee was nowhere near able to keep up, and I didn't want to go through and upgrade that passive line anymore. So I did finally craft this multi-block. I was going to upgrade to the infinity blocks right off the bat and just like rip the band-aid off, but you do need UEV energy hatches to do that, which is locked behind the mothership, so we are stuck with single parallel, but is what it is for the moment. The other thing we need to get to the mothership though, and to get these lightweight plates is, or if we go here to make there, is this molten redox. Now get the molten redox has been a pain. And this is where a bulk of the work for the last couple days went into. So I did set it up in here because I was kind of assuming a step at some point would end up being the clean room, because a lot of the BioVat recipes I've run into previously needed the clean room, but so far none of what I will show off needed that. But essentially, to make molten redox, if we follow this through, we need molten redox polymer, which we get from running through a LCR, which I have already crafted a mega for this. I just haven't set it up to get. And we use redox gas, which we run through distillation tower. So I do have the use the Dingote distillus thing. But if you notice, it needed cracked. So the cracked redox, I've already crafted a mega cracker as well. And then from there, to get redox, we need to run that through a distillation tower, which we got here. Or we kind of looks like, yeah, I think there's like a loop going on. But yeah, we run this, but ultimately the first step is this raw redox. Now to make the raw redox, we need to run that through a coke oven using this stuff, the Xenoxene, which we get through a bacteria vat. And we've been working towards specifically this petri dish culture right here, which cannot be sped up. It is only, if we click on this guy, it can only be done with this recipe. Now, this recipe is running over here. See, I'm up to 4 right now, which is pretty good. It means I can set it up and I'll make a decent amount. I do ultimately want 12 before I kind of turn all this off. But to make this and to get this little setup I've got going on work, essentially there was this whole petri dish chain, which I went through the last time I recorded this, but I have less time now, so I'm going to do kind of an abridged version. So to make this, the only recipe, like I said, is here, which includes this plasmid simple flask with this DNA in here. Now, if you click on that guy, you see this recipe. This is just because NEI is a little glitched out. Like, if you notice, this is not actually plasmid. This is a DNA sample flask. You actually have to use this guy. So where we use a cell of enzyme, a flask, empty flask, and then 2 data orbs and some liquid DNA. Now, the liquid DNA, the enzyme polymer, and then specifically if we were to look over here, the penicillin, those are all fluids that I also set up today, but I'll save those to the end because I'll show them out in the desert where I'm crafting all that stuff at. But first you have to make the data orbs. And if you notice right here, this recipe's got a 7.5% chance failure. The current thing that is limiting this for me is enzyme solution. I can only do one every 6 seconds because this is actually a relatively slow recipe. At HV, it's 60. And then overclocked, I have one running all the way at UHV, and it takes 6 seconds for a single bucket. So you look, it's HV for 10 liters. So very slow, very slow recipe right here. But to make this, we've got multiple Petri dishes going on. So essentially the ebb and flow of today, if we were to, well, here, so I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. So we got the data orbs over here. Now, luckily, these data orbs are not consumed. If you highlight them, you can see what DNA samples on them. Now, to make said data orbs, if we're following this back, it's the easiest way to do it. If you have to run these through the biolab with both this fluorescent DNA and this polymerase cell. Again, these two are also being made out in the desert and things I set up today. And then you have a random chance. In this case, for this one where it's E. coli, this one's free. Boom, easy, no problem. 7.5% over, or 75% for this one. But the ones we were interested in, one of them was 100%, and then the other is this 7.5% as well. This, as you can see here, Bernarda, Arbor, whatever, 7.5% to make this. So, but to make this DNA flask for it is also 7.5% chance and consumes this Petri dish, which when we click on the Petri dish, the first recipe you make using the Bernarda wood tree and unknown liquid is a 2.5%. So essentially, if you don't want this to take forever, you do also need to set up bacteria vats with one of these Petri dishes to then make this ridiculous looking liquid name, to then use that liquid name to make more of these Petri dishes at a higher rate. And that was kind of the ebb and flow. The other Petri dish that I need for all this is, if we go to here, we also need to consume this T-SETI one. If you look for this 7.5% chance, this Petri dish is consumed every time, so ultimately I had to set up bacteria vats for all these different liquids over here. And then I have set up this really rudimentary automation. Obviously, it's not perfect, still needs some manual intervention. And then the other parts for each of these steps, there's different modules that need to be specifically installed. I crafted all these today. So yeah, there are a lot of other little steps that went into this, and I'll show the desert. Like, for example, detergent powder, if we were to just look this up, was kind of a goofy one because this is made from extracting vines. So as we go to the desert, I'll show where I set that up because I don't even know if I've shown this building on recordings before. But this over here is my IC2 crop building before I decided that IC2 crops are miserable and I'm going to engage as little as possible with them. But one of the nice things Past Me did all the way back in like HV was I had at some point accidentally or received, when I was trying to crossbreed for things, vine seeds. So I'd even have to do anything to set up for vines because there's no other way to farm vines as far as I'm aware. So I actually had 2 random IC2 vine seed things from like way back in HV. So I just set up this guy, and then have an extractor in here and just have their own little sub network. So I'm not overflowing the network with that because I don't think we need very much detergent. But that's just an example of some of the little things. And then we go out to the desert, have to fly out there. I did upgrade this area. So the main thing I did was make it a proper sub network. Before it was just a single group of 32 channels. Definitely need way more channels now. So set that up. This set of 4 is for E. coli because we actually need quite a bit of E. coli because at first, and I may change this just depending on if I ever need to do more of this in the future. I will, this centrifuge will be swapped out to run on a different liquid. But essentially, this one's making liquid DNA out of the E. coli fluid that this is making down here. And this one is making the enzyme solution. If you look, 420 liters a second. So this recipe is really slow. This guy up here is taking the enzyme solution and making that polymerase. And this guy up here is taking liquid DNA and radon to make fluorescent DNA. Luckily, these two we don't need very much of. So I did just shut this guy off because I'm more focused on using the enzyme solution to get my petri dishes I'm after. These vats down here. So these two are probably the two that I'll need not for very long because they're basically here specifically to make the liquid that is used to make this petri dish, which is the Bernardus one, and then this petri dish, which is the T. seti one, in their more efficient forms instead of this, or to use the 75% recipe instead of this 2.5% recipe, as well as with seaweed. But now I'm thinking about it, I think I need to, oh, before I forget, yeah, I'd turn seaweed. I'd turn this off because I needed so much of it. What is extractor? Yeah, should go right here. Yeehaw! I have to look into this. I think I messed something up over there. This guy's just making the Bernarda seawood. Nothing too exciting. And this guy over here is making yeast. And then the yeast normally comes up into this one to make penicillin. However, since the enzyme was so slow, I decided to temporarily overclock this one all the way to UHV. And then when I'm done with what I'm working on, getting these petri dishes, I'll turn this back into crafting for penicillin, and just let this one take its sweet time filling it up, because I think I won't need to touch for a while, so I should have a very good backlog by the time I'm all done messing around with all this stuff. So I did over here. It's quite a bit went into this, a lot of time, and yeah, just kind of wrap this all up. Ultimately, for tomorrow, I essentially will take those my planned 12 petri dishes that I'm aiming for, to then come over to, I am too far south. Where is it? Right here. Plan on coming over here. This will be the location of where I do the redox processing. Gonna have those 2 Dangote distillation towers, the Mega LCR and the Mega oil cracker over here to do redox processing. Looks like we use it for quite a bit. I haven't quite decided how to set up, but honestly, after the petri dish thing today, this whole part of the setup should be a lot smoother and faster. I don't want to jinx myself, but I can't see too many problems coming up with that. And then we'll, from there, continue working on the mothership. But this will be the bulk of what I work on tomorrow, I imagine, is getting this all set up, making mothership parts, and yeah, going from there. But yeah, appreciate anybody for watching. Hope you had a good day and have a good night. I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.